Da'Sean podcast. It is Sunday night, February 28th, 10:29 in the p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the only legitimate time zone. My name is Rob Dauster. The gentleman that you see with me today is Desean Butler, former West Virginia All-American. Once again, he is back after a 2-2 week. He clinched a spot in the, I don't even know what conference Wheeling plays in, but you are in your conference tournament.
Mountain East Conference. If you had asked me that 2 weeks ago, it would have been a absolute like one of those Mr. Crab memes in the background, like of me thinking.
Well, I mean, look, talk your shit a little bit, man. You guys qualified for the conference tournament. You're in. You're playing.
Yeah, I'm
starts
very,
for tomorrow.
I'm very excited, Rob. I'm not gonna lie to you. We have a ton of, just like every other team, we have a ton of things we need to work on and get better at. But I know these guys are extremely happy about fighting through this tough week of 3 away games in tough venues against tough teams, and they've found a way to get the wins we needed so we can qualify, man. It's awesome. I'm happy for them.
Well, it's good. Congrats. But I'm not going to lie. I am glad to have you back. It was weird.
Same.
Like felt like we didn't talk for so long, and I didn't really know what to do. I'm sitting here watching basketball. I got nobody to text. What am I doing? What's going on?
Once again, man, this is going to be new for me here. I got to get my feet wet again. I'm worried I might not be able to keep up with you. This is
the last time we were on. I gave you all these compliments of how much better you're getting. All out the window now, man. It's all good.
Let me take a week off. There you go. He can't handle compliments.
All right. It was actually a pretty wild weekend in college basketball, which makes sense, seeing as anybody listening to this right now, it is currently March for them. So it's starting to get there, man. It's that time of year. It's we're here. It's the time. It's the big time.
This is why we do this for this time now.
As always, this podcast is made possible by our partners over at Bet Rivers. We have to talk about Ohio State getting worked over by Iowa on Sunday. Villanova lost today. Illinois, that was tough to say. Illinois picked up a really good win at Wisconsin without Ayo Dosunmu. Michigan State took a loss at Maryland, who looks like they're for real all of a sudden. And Cade Cunningham went fucking bonkers at Oklahoma in one of the most impressive individual performances I've seen this season. But the big news, we only have one more undefeated team in college basketball right now. It is the Gonzaga Bulldogs, because Baylor went into Fog Allen Fieldhouse and lost to the Jayhawks. It was not pretty. They did not look good. They very much looked like a team where, according to Jeff Goodman's reporting, 8 players on the roster came down with COVID during their 3-week shutdown. They didn't play for 3 weeks. They only had 2 practices before the Iowa State game. They've had 5 days since they came off of their shutdown, and it very much looked like it. So what were your takeaways? There's 2 things. There's 2 things for me that we need to talk about. 1 is Baylor, and 2 is the homie David McCormack.
I swear to God. The homie. The homie David McCormack. As soon as you brought up the game, all I could think about was, I'm so happy David McCormack went out there and did his thing, man. I was so happy for him, man. He had 6 of the first 10 points. It got to a point where they put Mark Vital on him. Baylor did some of the things that we discussed all the time, but you definitely bring it up, going small to be a little bit more versatile defensive wise, and being able to run offensively and have some mismatches. And it got to a point where they were sending double teams in the post to David McCormack. I mean, he's in my eyes, Kansas did a great job overall, playing well together. It wasn't like Kansas shot this tremendous percentage from 3, but they outworked Baylor. They punched them in the mouth early, and Baylor, I mean, after having this time off, they were a little wobbly after that hit, man. And I mean, like I said, David McCormack is getting doubled in the post at one point in time in this game. They had to get the ball out of my guy's hands.
When did you think that would ever happen? I never seen it.
I always had the faith. I just had no. But in all seriousness, no. He played great. I mean, Kansas came out there, like I said, punched Baylor in the mouth. And I mean, Jared Butler didn't have one of his better games. I think majority of guys, it might be easily one of the worst games Baylor played. So it wasn't. It's hard. It was hard for me to judge it because I don't want to take anything away from Kansas. They're at home. They protect their home. and it just made me feel like I didn't get a good Baylor, so I can see like this. Like I don't know. I can't take it away from the win away from them, but I still don't know. Like I don't feel any different about Baylor. Like I just feel like Kansas beat a like almost say wounded Baylor, but more or less like they weren't the Baylor I expected. Guys came out and it was just shooting terrible as a team.
Yeah, they very clearly weren't themselves, and we'll get into that. But I do want to start with David McCormack, because there's something that there's numbers that I want to throw at you, and
I'm all ears.
It hurts me. It hurts me to say this, because it's just basically admitted how like wrong I was about him. Well, actually, no, it's not how wrong I was about him. It's about how much better he's gotten as a player.
There we go.
So after the win against Texas Tech, when Kansas beat Texas Tech by 1 in Fog Allen Fieldhouse, which was their first game of conference play, David McCormack had a usage rate that was over 30. And his efficiency was at a 75. Like his offensive rating, according to KenPom, was a 75. We talked about specifically what that was last week. It's basically more or less on 100 possessions. Anything that ends with David McCormack ending that possession, you would average 75 points out of 100 possessions, which is very bad. That's very, very bad, especially for someone that was that high usage. Well, in conference play, right, his offensive rating is 116. And his usage rate is 28.5, which is really, really good. And I'm going to put that into context. Okay. Hunter Dickinson's offensive rating is 119.7, and his usage rate is 26.1. Basically the same as David McCormack. Luka Garza is 124.2, and his usage rate is 31.3, which is just like off the charts good. There's a reason he's the best. Drew Timme, his offensive rating is 129.3, and his usage rate is 26.4, which is like exceedingly excellent. So that kind of gives you an idea of how good David McCormack has been. He's basically been on par in league play with Hunter Dickinson. And I never thought I would see that. And I'm about to say something that I never thought I would say, Desean. Wow. We've been talking all season about how Kansas needed a go-to guy. Well, it's David McCormack. Like, that is their go-to guy. What their entire offense right now is built around getting him post touches, letting him bury smaller defenders, finally having him go up through those smaller defenders and just say, you know what? I'm fucking 7 feet tall, 250 pounds, and you're not going to stop me if I'm going at the rim. And he's doing it, and he's doing it really well. And that's what Kansas' offense is built on. They're now forcing you to double, and as soon as you double, they kick it out. Boom, swing, attack a closeout. Swing. Christian Brown's knocking down a three. Swing. You got Marcus Garrett getting downhill, getting to the rim. And it opens up everything for him offensively. That's it right there. It's David McCormack. I never thought I would say it, but it's him. It's it. I'm finally come around. It's him.
Put some respect on my guy's name. He's been. I'm
going to take this time to publicly apologize to the homie David McCormack.
There we go. Nah, man, honestly, like, to your point, man, he's from the start of the season till this point now, he's become extremely efficient. You can see it in his game, just the way he's carrying himself on the floor. We're not seeing a lot of those turnaround jump shots that he just put up a ton of. Mm-hmm. He's getting in the paint and going toward the rim a little bit. He's being physical. He's not backing down. He's bringing a fight, and I enjoy watching it. Like the last couple Kansas games, actually, I've enjoyed watching Dave McCormack play, man, because he's competing and Kansas looks good when they try to get to him. I mean, excuse me, I was about to call him Spencer. It helps Marcus Garrett a ton. Being able to find somebody, it helps. Like you said, it helps Christian Brown a ton. It helps the entire team when they have this guy. They got that play where they literally bring everybody to one side of the court. They get that little lob pass off, and then after a while, if he gets the jump hook going. Now it's time. Like Baylor isn't the first team that's been trying to getting the ball out of David McCormack's hands, man. So like, it's not like this. Baylor just couldn't do it. Like, it's not just them. So that's how well he's been playing as of recently, man. I'm happy for him. I remember saying this in the beginning of the season. I would love to see what this Kansas team looks like when the tournament starts. I mean, they didn't have that score. I know we discussed that. They needed that go-to guy. I don't know if he's the go-to guy yet. He's playing very well. I don't know if he's the go-to guy for Kansas, but if he continues to play like this and they get into the tournament, I can see Kansas making a very good run.
Yeah, well, see, that's my thing about them. They are right now pretty much, I think, at their ceiling of what they can be. Like Bill Self has got them playing great. They've won 6 of the last 7. They've been awesome defensively over that stretch. A lot of it has to do with the fact that they played like Iowa State and Kansas State in a couple of those games, to be fair. But the only loss they have is at Texas in overtime, and like there's no shame in losing at Texas in overtime. They beat Baylor, so I think right about now, like they're peaking at the right time. Like they're done with conference play. This is it. They peaked at the right time. So
can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What do you with this team specifically? Like it's always good to like I know I always felt like this. Like I'd rather get my losses and everything out of the way, like toward the early February and stuff like that, and then be ready to start, like you said, peaking around this time. Do you feel like this team, this Kansas team, can go deep in the tournament even with this roster the way it is, like as long as they know themselves? Like they don't have to be like they don't have to be any other team. I mean, the style that they have right now is pretty simple. And if if it works and they're comfortable just playing that and playing within themselves and just sticking to these things that they've been doing. Granted, the competition has been, besides this game, has been a little bit lower than usual. I will agree, but
I mean, sometimes that helps, Like sometimes you need to beat up on an Iowa State to be able to get your confidence and figure out the shit that you need to be able to do.
Exactly.
You're not gonna if you're struggling a little bit playing against West Virginia and playing against Baylor and playing against some of the best, like Oklahoma, like you're not going to be able to figure out what you're doing wrong and get it right and get into that rhythm playing against some of the best teams in the country. It's just that that's not how it works. Now
it doesn't help. It doesn't help.
Got their confidence right. They figured it. They figured out what they were doing. They got their reps in. They're peaking at the right time. For me, like I think that they're good enough to be able to make a run. I think it's one of those situations where it all kind of comes down to matchups for them, because I don't think that they have. Like they don't have that. David McCormack's their go-to guy, but they don't have that star, right? Like
I agree. That's what I said. I don't know if that's their guy.
Dave McCormack's been great, but like this is the best that we're going to see David McCormack be, and he's also very limited in the sense that he has to have people kind of set. Like you're not giving it to him 12 feet from the basket and saying, go make something happen. You could do that with Luka Garza a little bit and Drew Timme a little bit.
He's not like Embiid. It has to be like a setup play where he gets that.
Yes, he's getting his stuff out of like the offense that Bill Self is running results in David McCormack getting a duck in off of this action. And that's where, and they're able to get it to him because they create the angle to get whatever they create the, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm a little bit worried about that. And I never really trust teams to go that far that don't have great point guards. Like I'm not going to just like bet on them to make it to the Final Four if you don't have a great point guard. But I mean, they really, really defend. It's Bill Self, and they've figured out who they are. And at the end of the day, like that's really important, right? Be well coached, be able to know who you are, understand your own scouting report more than anything else, and execute your offense. And you're basically going to be who you're supposed to be. So if they end up, I would guess they end up like a 4 seed.
Mm-hmm. I think they had him at a 3 before that game even started.
Yeah, so I mean, I think they get to the second weekend. I don't know if they're beating any of the best teams from the Big Ten. I don't think that they're. If Baylor figures it out, like I think that Baylor's still in a different stratosphere from them.
Yeah, definitely.
Gonzaga obviously is. We already saw that matchup, but like I mean, Kansas can get to a second weekend and figure it out from there, and then all you got to do is have a 2-0 weekend, and you're in the Final Four. So they've kind of figured it out. But I do want to talk about Baylor a little bit because I keep. And it's fucking driving me insane, D. I keep seeing people say, like, well, why are you putting all these caveats in for Baylor? And why are you saying, yeah, but they had this 2-week shutdown. Michigan had a shutdown. And they came back and they kicked Wisconsin's ass on the road. Well, there's 2 very, very important distinctions that you have to make about these 2 shutdowns. The first is that Michigan did not shut down because they had any positive cases within their program. Nobody on that roster tested positive. The reason they shut down is because the state of Michigan stepped in and said, okay, someone in that athletic department tested positive for a new variant of COVID, which is more contagious. So they said, closing everything down for 2 weeks. We're making sure that this doesn't get out. We're being ultra safe. You guys can do your workouts in your apartment, whatever you got to do. Like, and yes, that's going to hurt your rhythm a little bit. And yes, it's going to hurt your, you're going to come back and maybe the handle's not going to be as tight. Maybe your legs are going to be a little bit gone. You're going to not quite have your wind, but you can do enough workouts in your house that you don't lose everything. For Baylor, 8 guys in that program caught COVID. 8 of them. 8 not just guys in the program, 8 players caught COVID. That's according to Jeff Goodman. If Jeff Goodman says so, like, he did a huge big story on Baylor last week. If anybody knows, like, Goodman knows, 8 players.
That's a lot of people,
COVID. And like, obviously it's not like that. I don't want to get like too into the wormhole or rabbit hole of all that stuff, but like COVID is not going, like, it doesn't kill people that are that age the same way. It's not as dangerous, as life threatening as it is for people in college basketball age versus people that are like 70 plus, 80 plus. But that shit takes you off your feet for a week, sometimes 2 weeks. Like,
not to mention, you don't know what the hell could happen. Like 3 of those guys could have got pneumonia. Like 3 other guys. Like, it's just like all kinds of stuff comes with that. Comes with it. So
not only are they dealing with a 3-week shutdown where they only had 2 practices coming back, they're basically starting over from scratch. Like, Michigan was able to maintain it for the most part. Baylor's they're basically starting over when it comes to like their fitness level and how in shape they are and whether or not they have their legs and how long they can run. And like, you can see that when they play. Like, their cuts weren't crisp, their jump shots were short and flat. Their rotations weren't there. Like, when Baylor is late in rotations, like, that's when you know that they're not right, because the whole point of their defense, they have great individual defenders, but what makes their defense so good, they don't let you go middle. They force you to drive baseline. That help is there before you even realize the help is coming, right? They got the guy cutting off the next pass. They're zoning up, and their rotations are like this. When they get into scramble mode, man, I love watching them get into scramble mode because it's like, boom, lockdown, boom, close out, boom, close out.
Best defensive team in the country. It's not even close.
Yeah, normally, like, when you get teams, I mean, Day, you know this. You're a coach now, you play. When you get teams in rotation like that, normally, like, that's what you want for an offense. Like, that a bucket's coming. You're either going to get an open jumper or you're going to get a drive to the basket against a closeout, right? You don't get that against Baylor.
No.
And Kansas got it basically every single possession. So, I mean, I could reel off more stats for you, but let's leave it at this. They ain't shooting the way that they shot before the shutdown.
They got out-rebounded.
Their offensive rebounding percentage is way down. They're not forcing turnovers at the same rate. Like, they are not the same team. And I'm sorry for my little rant, but I'll let you go after this. But my biggest hope right now is that they are able to eventually get back to where they were before the shutdown. And I'm not totally convinced that they will be able to get there, man. Like, they got a long way to go, a long way to go. And it would really, really suck. And I would feel so bad for Scott and so bad for those players. Cause like, that team, I know, like, you're a West Virginia guy, but like, those Baylor kids are so likable.
Not a good. They seem like a good group of guys, man. And I obviously, as a basketball player, you admire how hard they work, especially coming from like a program like that I came from, like where the team is predicated on defense and rebounding. I mean, you see a team do these things, like, I mean, you can't help but like want them to do well because like you come from that similar background cloth in a sense. I pray that I feel like they're a good enough team that they can bounce back within a week or so. And this will be just like a speed bump. It's the thing is, like, if they had ran into Iowa State, like, well, actually, no, I'm tripping. Yeah, they already had that. But still, like, they're to run into a team like that early on, like coming out of this, I wouldn't be too worried. But they ran into Kansas at home, at Kansas. Like, I would be disappointed in Kansas they didn't come out there and win that game. Like, that actually would have been more like shame on them. Now, obviously, we're like, oh, Baylor, it's Baylor. They're ranked up like number 2 in the country at the same time. They're coming back from this pause. And I mean, Kansas have been playing pretty well and they got the kinks out. Like, man, it is what it is, man. I think Baylor would be just fine. Though. Give them a week, 2 weeks, get their feet underneath them, and
I hope so.
It's still the same team, I feel like, because they're not predicated just on offense, and they do so many other things in the court that make them the team that they are, and they're so deep. I don't foresee this being something that'll last too long.
I hope you're right, man. They got West Virginia coming up next. I don't think
they're gonna. I don't think. Yeah, they're not gonna win that game. But it's
not going to be easy. So,
no,
all right. Before we move on to the next thing, let me just tell you guys a little bit about our partners over at Bet Rivers Sportsbook. If you haven't signed up with Bet Rivers yet, now's the time. Bet Rivers Sportsbook is offering a $250 match bonus for your first deposit. But what sets them apart is that they require just one playthrough to turn your bonus into cash money. When you win at Bet Rivers Sportsbook, they pay fast. And now it's even faster with Rush Pay instant approval for withdrawals. It's safe, it's secure, it's reliable. I know I use them. And with March Madness right around the corner, it's March 1st. When you're listening to this, guys, it's March 1st. There's never been a better time to give Bet Rivers Sportsbook a try. So go to betrivers.com today or download the Bet Rivers iOS app. You must be 21 years or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, let's get into some takeaways from the weekend, Desean. I'm assuming you're with me in saying that at this point in time right now, you got to call Michigan and Gonzaga the two best teams in the country. I would probably say it's Gonzaga number one and then Michigan number two. But until we see Baylor get back to their form, I think you have to say Michigan is the second best team in the country right now.
I won't argue that, especially if we're waiting for Baylor to get back to normal. Yeah, Michigan was a number 3 to me coming out of their pause, and man, they've been good. They've been good. They've come out. They beat Iowa. They came out. They beat Indiana convincingly. I'll lie to you now. I'm starting to. Well, Franz Wagner, of course, as we've talked about him, he's amazing. But man, I've probably said this as a lot as well. Like Isaiah Livers, bro. Like I remember you saying they've got 2 or 3 pros in their team, and I will sit there and watch, and I'm like, this dude is damn near automatic from behind the arc, solid defender, rebounds. Like he does a lot for this Michigan team, and then obviously you have Hunter Dickinson, and you have Eli Brooks and these guys. Like I feel like the way that team is set up, you'll get your majority of your scoring from Hunter Dickinson. You'll get the scoring from Isaiah Livers and Franz Wagner. And if you can get, and this probably sounds terrible, but these guys do so many other things on the court to get these guys the ball, play defense. Shawnee Brown, Mike Smith, and Eli Brooks. If you can get these guys to get around 20 points all together, this Michigan team plays good enough defense to the point where they'll beat any team by 10, 15 almost. Yeah. The teams that they're playing, they're just that talented.
They're very, very, very good. And Franz Wagner, I love him so much. He's so good. I'm glad that he finally came out and kind of had a couple of breakout games this week.
He needed these 2 back-to-back ones for these 220, these dubs he just put up.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you understand what you're looking at in a basketball game and you understand what role players are asked to do, you very much know how good Franz Wagner is. It's not a secret to anyone that knows what they're looking at. I'm glad that he came out and he had these 2 big performances. So it's kind of when I'm sitting here being Franz Wagner is the best NBA prospect on this roster, and everyone's talking about Isaiah Livers and Hunter Dickinson and their point guard play, whatever. I feel vindicated now. I feel vindicated now. I feel vindicated.
Those guys are pros. They're pros, but what he does for his team, he's not the guy hunting shots.
And the other part of it is he's doing right now, the role he plays right now is the role he'll play in the NBA.
Yeah, he's not hunting shots. He just takes what he gets. And he plays. He just flat out just keeps it simple and plays. He's not out there forcing things. He's running his ass off in transition. He's doing a lot, man, and it shows. I mean, and if he can do that this efficient, he's a pro. This is a given. He's a pro.
All right, so I guess the first overreaction then, since I don't think it's really an overreaction to call Michigan the second best team in the country, is probably is Iowa good defensively now? Are they actually good? Is this team, did they figure it out on that end of the floor? Today they beat Ohio State at Ohio State 73-57, which is really, really impressive when you consider that Ohio State entering the day was one of the top 3 offenses in all of college basketball. And they scored 57 points at home to an Iowa team that allegedly cannot get stops against anybody.
I kind of think Dwayne didn't have a good shooting night, and I feel like if Dwayne doesn't have a good shooting night, and Ahrens and these guys aren't like putting up shots and numbers, I mean, EJ Liddell was okay as well tonight. Like they need EJ Liddell, they need Dwayne Washington Jr., they need CJ Walker to have these great nights so they can be the team that they are, and capitalize on certain mismatches and things like that. I just feel like Iowa shot the ball well, and Luka Garza played infinitely better than he has played his game before, the games before.
Yeah. So I was having a conversation with someone about this game, and they were like, look, I don't feel any different about Iowa's defense now than I did before, because I thought that this was all about Ohio State missing shots.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily about Ohio State keeping them from getting the shots that Ohio State wanted to get. It was about them just missing the shots that they wanted. And I think that's fair to a point. But, like, also, this is like the third time that we've said that about teams that are playing Iowa. And so I'm going to throw another stat at you, okay? There's this guy named Bart Torvik who runs a Temple Free Stats website called T-Rank that's kind of similar to, like, Ken Pom in terms of how they use, like, schedule adjusted and pace adjusted efficiency metrics to determine who the best teams are over a certain period of time. And it allows you to look at it based on certain windows in time instead of over just the whole season. And in the last 7 games, since Iowa lost at home against Ohio State when they gave up 89 points, in the last 7 games, Iowa has been a top 10 defense in the country. Top 10. And here's my take. And I don't know if I told this to you the other day, but my take on it is that what changed for them is just the presence of CJ Frederick on the floor. And the reason I say that is, one, CJ Frederick he's not a great individual defender, but he's a good positional guy, right? Like, he's not going to make mistakes. You're not going to get wide open layups when he's on the floor. He's probably going to get beaten. He's not going to be able to stay in front of quicker guards, but he's going to make the right rotations. He's going to make the right reads. He's going to be in the right spot on the floor. And that, to a point, that matters on a team where you got a bunch of guys that do a lot of really stupid shit.
It does.
But more importantly, like, he just is so good on the offensive end of the floor. And there's 2 things that he provides them. One, he does not turn the ball over. We talked about this. He doesn't turn the ball over. And he makes shots, and he's unbelievably efficient. And what it does is it forces the ball to go through the net, right? And it forces them to take the ball out of the basket and that extra half second to be able to get back on defense. And it keeps Iowa from having to play in transition defensively, which is where they really, really struggle. So for my money, like, I don't think that they're great defensively. I think that a lot of the results of these numbers are kind of skewed by some teams having poor shooting nights and the fact that they also played a little bit of a weaker schedule. That said, I think that as long as they play defense at the level they've been playing it recently, I think that that's good enough to get them to a Final Four.
I don't expect them not to get better over the year as well either. Like, I mean, yes, they're not a great defensive team, but they've gotten a little bit better. I don't think that's like a false like thing to say, but I don't know. Like, that, to say they can go to the Final Four, I can agree with that because they have the player of the year in their team. Not to mention Joe Weezy is getting shots up. But yeah, exactly. And sorry, I can't help but think about that name. That was running in my head the entire time. But no, like, if they don't make shots though, then we see, and when they play against good teams, like the scheduling is a very big point. Like, when they play against good teams and they don't make these shots, like, they can be down like they were to a Michigan or lose to a team like Indiana where they're not shooting the ball well. So it's just one of those nights where Luka can give you a bunch, but if they're not making shots in the perimeter, that's the game. Like,
yeah. Like, for my money, I think Iowa might be, like, they're just so incredibly matchup dependent. And I think it's the same thing, kind of similar with Kansas in the sense that if you can take away Garza without selling out on double teams, right? If you can, if you can lock them up one-on-one the way that Hunter Dickinson did, or if you could play like a really kind of disciplined pack line where you're making the double on the catch more or less, and you're able to rotate efficiently out of it, which is like what Indiana does. And you have enough size inside where you can slow them down one-on-one if you have to at times. They become very easy to guard because they don't have guys that can really kill you off the dribble. They have a ton of guys that can make shots, but if you can get there on the shots, you can slow them down a little bit.
You just run them off the 3-point line, and that's something that's what Michigan did. I got a chance to watch that game. Like Michigan ran them off the 3-point line, or they forced them to shoot difficult threes. They didn't get any assists that game because like they had to run off the 3-point line, take 2-3 dribbles. Sometimes they stepped back into threes, sometimes they didn't. They just drove to the basket, one leg floaters from far and contested twos, and they didn't get the normal one more passes they would normally make when they're making these shots and they gap and kick. They didn't have those things because that's not what they normally look for. And not accustomed to getting ran off the line that and people staying with them. So if you can do those things, you can make it very difficult for them without having to, like you say, sell out in these double teams on Luka.
How worried are you about Ohio State?
Not really worried at all, honestly. I still think they're going to be, because of EJ Liddell's didn't have the great. He still made 7 field goals tonight. He is a mismatch, and as long as they play against teams that are going to have bigs out there, like legit bigs, Ohio State will be just fine. And the matter of them winning the game, they'll be in the game, but will they win the game is going to be dependent on CJ and Walker and Dwayne Washington Jr. It's just going to be dependent on them. Because if they have those kind of similar to what we talked about when we were talking about Texas Tech early in the season, it's just they expect Mac McClung to just get these numbers up, and that's what's going to keep them in the game if they do everything else that they're supposed to do defensively. Vice versa for Ohio State offensively, we know what you're going to give me, EJ Liddell, and we know what you can do in those mismatches and how they can make things work. Now, are Dwayne Washington and these guys going to make these guards, defend and get baskets and then keep the defense fully honest on the perimeter? So then there's no worries. Like EJ Liddell can take advantage of the mismatch full out because he's going to get his numbers.
Yep. Yeah, I'm with you. I kind of think that, so they've lost 3 in a row, right? Mm-hmm. The first 2 were a little bit fluky in the sense that they played Michigan. They played Michigan tough. And there were some individual mistakes that were a little bit uncommon for Ohio State down the stretch that cost them that win. So I'm not worried about the Michigan one. At Michigan State, look, Michigan State's playing better. Ohio State got a horrible whistle down the stretch. So I'm not that worried about that one either. And then this one against Iowa, look, if you're a team that relies as heavily as Ohio State does on 3-point shooting and you can't really guard, eventually the regression monster is going to hit. Eventually you're going to start missing some shots. And I think that's kind of what has happened with Ohio State. So I don't think that they were quite as good as maybe a top 5 team in the country, but they're still they're a top 10 team. That's a threat to the Final Four if they get the right draw. They're fine. I'm not worried.
We're just talking about them being a possible 1 seed. Their talent, when they're working and they're good, they can be good. It's just a matter of the consistency part of the offensively.
Yeah, and just for people that have forgotten, these are the teams that Ohio State has beaten this year. UCLA on a neutral, Rutgers at home, Rutgers on the road, Illinois on the road, Wisconsin on the road, Iowa on the road, Maryland on the road, Indiana at home, Penn State. They got some really, really good wins.
Yeah, yes.
So
they're a good team. That's not even a debate. I'd pity anybody that would debate that.
Yeah. All right. Before we get back into the rest of this pod and back into the overreactions, I do have to let you guys know that support for this this podcast is brought to you by Manscaped. COVID spring break is right around the corner, Desean, and you know what that means. Spring break in your pants. Yay! Manscaped is here to ensure that the party in your pants never stops. Even Veronica Corningstone wouldn't say no to this pants party. Manscaped has partnered with Dauster and Da'Sean to provide our listeners with an exclusive 20% off discount using the code FIELD, that's FIELD, at manscaped.com to make sure that you don't ruin any spring break or summertime vibes with pubes peeking out of your swimsuit. So before we get back to the show, let me tell you a little bit about their Perfect Package 3.0 kit. It starts with the Lawnmower 3.0, their third-generation trimmer that features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to their advanced skin-safe technology. You don't want to worry about nicking the goods while you're trying to clean up down there. Trust me, Desean. Trust me on that. Feel confident shaving your balls with a Lawnmower 3.0. In addition to the new blade, the Lawnmower 3.0 also comes with an LED light for a more precise trim, and it's cordless and waterproof, so you can take that grooming into the shower. Much easier for cleanup. Trust me, I know. Truth be told, you don't want to be using the same trimmer on your balls that you use on your face. That's just gross. You don't want to do that. And the Perfect Package 3.0, it also comes with the Crop Preserver, which is an anti-chafing ball deodorant and moisturizer, and the Crop Preserver, or the Crop Reviver, which keeps the goods from sticking to your leg. Plus, Manscaped will throw in a couple of free gifts for you. The Shed Travel Bag, which is a $39 value, and the patented chafe-free Manscaped Boxer Briefs. So get 20% off and free shipping right now with the code FIELD at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com with the code FIELD. Your balls will thank you. And Desean, trust me when I say this, your wife will too. You
LED lights, the grooming accident, and Veronica Cornerstone, they all have me right there.
Yeah, if Veronica Cornerstone didn't get you, then
I don't know what to do. I can't help you.
Nothing will. All right, so my next overreaction is that the best thing that could have happened to this Illinois team is to have Ayo Dosunmu get injured. The best thing that could have happened to them is have him get injured, because my take was they were a little bit too reliant on Ayo and Kofi. And this has forced some guys that were younger that have been a little bit inconsistent, like, for example, Adam Miller, like, for example, Andre Curbelo. Yep. And it's forced them to step up into a more kind of ball-dominant lead role. And they're going to need that if they want to make a run in March. Eventually, at some point in March, Kofi Coburn's going to get in foul trouble or be rendered ineffective, or Ayo Dosunmu is going to have an off night. And they need those guys to be able to step up and provide in those moments. They are getting that experience right now. And oh, by the way, they're doing it while they are winning at Wisconsin. What's your take?
I was not going to lie. I was worried, especially after the Michigan State game. Obviously, the nose breaking thing was concerning, but I was very concerned with how terrible defensively they played, how bad they did at the free throw line. It was just I was wondering what was going on. I mean, Rocket Watson, these guys got into the paint whenever they wanted to. They got wherever they wanted to get. No one's had any type of resistance and touched anybody, anything. And almost, like I said earlier about they got punched in the mouth, and then they didn't respond. And I was worried how the next few games would go, with the Nebraska game and Wisconsin. And Nebraska game comes up and Kofi doesn't miss any free throws, really. I think they shot better. They definitely shot better than the game before, but they came out there and they hooped. And like you said, it forced some guys to grow up. Curbelo almost had a triple-double that game. Adam Miller played great. Granison played great. It was good for them to have these guys, to have this happen in a sense. These guys got an opportunity to just grow up and go out there and figure it out on their own. So hopefully when Ayo comes back, they can continue to do that while obviously Ayo is out there on the floor with them. The Wisconsin game was dope. I thought it was a lot of fun. I'm a big Trice fan, so my boy went over there. He put on a good show toward the end, but once again, Kofi Coburn and DeMonte Williams, these guys came out and played. They played a good game and ended up sneaking out of there with a W without who we will consider now. I will consider, when I say we, a guy that should be possibly the player of the year.
Yep. The thing that was great about and I swear when I was watching this, I was thinking this in my head. Every time that Dimitri hit one of those shots, I was like, I know now I understand where that is Desean's guy, because every single one of those shots was nah, what is that shot? Oh, that shit went in.
Okay. 16 points in 15 points probably in.
I think it was 19 points in 125 seconds. It was
it was insane. I just remember I initially I was just sitting there watching and I'm like, all right, he made the first, he made a three. All right, he got fouled twice. He made the fourth free throws. I'm like, all right, cool. Maybe they're three. Oh, another one. Like it was just I was just
the last
jaw dropping
where right like there. It was the pump fake and he was kind of leaning and he shot it. I was like,
yeah, is that the bank?
That's a Desean Butler shot. No, it went in regular.
All right, cool.
I was like, that's a Desean Butler shot right there because that shit is off balance. There's no way you would ever coach someone to shoot a ball like that. But hey, man, it went in.
Once again, man.
Don't argue when the ball goes in, right?
Nah, you damn sure can't, man. It was such an impressive display of scoring. But it was awesome to see that even without one of their leaders, Illinois still figured out a way to win, and they won at the free throw line, which they have been terrible at. Like it was good to see that, especially from a team that's getting ready to go up there and play Michigan. I think coming up Tuesday. Like I actually, it sucks. I don't know if Iowa's gonna be back for that game. I wish he could. I wish it would make the game that much better. But I'm excited to see how they'll hold up. Like they got these young guys going out there against this which I would say that's a young team in a sense, but they play like they're an older team, very experienced team. I can't wait to watch the game just to see how it pans out.
Yeah, that's going to be a good game. Hopefully Iowa can play in it. All right. Villanova lost at Butler. For my money, I think that was mostly just like one of those nights, one of those shooting nights. I think Villanova was 2 for 24 from three. Let me just check the box score to make sure I'm right on that. 2 for 27. They were 2 for 27 from three. That is a crisp 7.4%, Desean. They were under 40% from the floor. They got some shots. They got some good looks. They didn't make those looks. And sometimes that's going to happen to you. Like that's the nature of the game of college basketball. So
I feel like they're missing a piece, man. Like they have a bunch of guys that can do a lot of the same things on the perimeter. Obviously, you got good shooters for the most part. Obviously, I don't know about after this game, but they got good shooters. They got guys that can to attack. They got guys that gap and kick. Like they got a couple guys that can rebound and I don't know. I just feel like they're missing someone that can give them.
You know what it is?
It's just because it's like there's so much of the same thing on the perimeter, and then you have Samuels and you have JRE next to each other who are somewhat similar in a sense, except JRE obviously hits the boards a little bit different. Like he's a little bit more consistent at rebounding and other things, but like it's just they're just missing. I hate to say like a star player or something like that, but they're just missing like a player that.
No, I think you're right. So let's go through it. Right. So the first team when they won in 2016, these are the guys that they had on their roster. Ryan Arcidiacono was their star point guard. He was a senior. He's been in the NBA for the last 5 years. Josh Hart, first round pick. Still in the NBA. Jalen Brunson, as a freshman, was a McDonald's All-American. Now he is he was junior preseason or junior national player of the year, and he was a second-round pick still playing in the NBA. Mikal Bridges ended up being a lottery pick, right? In 2018, they had 3 of those guys still. They still had 2 of them. They still had Mikal Bridges. They still had Jalen Brunson, both pros. They also had Dante DiVincenzo, who was ended up being a first-round pick. Eric Pascal, who is currently, I believe he is starting for the Warriors, at least playing for the Warriors. He's heavy in their rotation. Amari Spellman, first-round pick, right? That's 5 NBA players on the roster on the 2018 team that won. They had 4 NBA players on the roster of the 2016 team that won the title. This year's roster, who's the pro? Where's the NBA player? Jermaine Samuels will probably get there, right? Just not Jermaine. Jeremiah Robinson Earl.
Jeremiah Robinson Earl, yeah.
Will probably get there because he's big enough. He's a good enough rebounder. He's got a soft touch. Like he's skilled, right? He'll play in the NBA. I don't know how good he'll end up being. Is Justin Moore a pro? Not if he's shooting 30% from 3. No. Is Colin Gillespie a pro? I think Colin Gillespie might be one of these guys that comes back for another year in college. Jermaine Samuels, I want him to be a pro, but he just hasn't taken that leap that I thought he was. He came in and I expected him to develop into like a pure wing, and he's still kind of like an undersized 4.
Exactly, yeah.
Set. Caleb Daniels, I want to be more into him than I am, but whatever. Like, where's the pro? They don't have a pro on the roster.
I don't say, and that's the thing. Like they have so many guys that do similar things. It's just like they need somebody to be able to give the ball to and make a play sooner or later, and they don't have that. I mean, Jerry he can't be that guy. He does it from time to time. But I mean, the style of play that he has and what he actually can do, like his tool, like that shouldn't be demanded of him to like be the guy to make a play off the bounce from the perimeter for them to be successful. Like that's not it.
Yep. All right. My next overreaction, I think this is one that you'll agree with. Cade Cunningham basically locked himself up to be the number 1 overall pick. I don't think there's any argument to make that he shouldn't be the number 1 overall pick at this point. After the performance that he had against Oklahoma, he had 40 points, he had 11 boards, and he was just unbelievable down the stretch. If you guys haven't seen it yet, like go find a highlights clip on YouTube. Go like check Mike Schmidt's Twitter page. You know he always is going to have those performances out there. He hit so many tough shots. And it was one of those things where like every time Oklahoma State needed a bucket to kind of curb the momentum, or every time Oklahoma like scored a couple points in a row and took the lead and looked like they were about to run away with it at home, Cade Cunningham stepped up and made a shot. And it's not like he was making easy shots. Like he was creating against pressure defense, coming in like step backs and turnaround jumpers in the lane and pull-ups from 18 feet, bucket. He was so good. And the best part about it, Desean, is I don't think that we've seen what he does best yet fully, because he plays on a team that doesn't have very many shooters. The best attribute is his ability to manipulate the defense with the pass and his vision. We haven't seen that.
That's what I'm saying. We haven't seen that at all. That's one of the things I was curious. All right, so because of this season, there's people out here that will probably think because this season is the way it is, that most NBA teams are probably just whoever they thought were the number 1 draft picks, that's what they're going to go with. Like whoever they thought it was going to be in the beginning of the season, because of how up and down the season was and how you didn't get a really good view of everybody the way you wanted to get the good view of them, that, they'll just take who they were planning on taking at the number 1 picks and they'll just keep it the same, just like it was just a wash year. But if you look at the season in your mind, do you believe like what you've seen? Do you believe that Cade Cunningham is without a doubt, like if you take away this 40-point game, without a doubt, is he the number 1 draft pick?
I think that he would probably still go number 1. I think that I would absolutely take him number 1. I think that you would have to. I love Evan Mobley, but I think that there's a certain ceiling in what Evan Mobley can be, because he's not a guy that can dominate a game with the ball in his hands. And at the NBA level, like, you can have a great player that kind of plays the role that I see Evan Mobley playing. Like, I think Evan Mobley will be somewhere between a Bam Adebayo and an Anthony Davis when it comes down to it. Like, depending on how skilled he ends up getting, how much his body fills out, how strong he ends up getting. But, like, his height, his ability defensively, how smart he is, the fact that he can handle the ball, the fact that he's a really good passer, he can make shots. Like, he is the best role-playing 5, I think, that you prospect that you'll ever find. But I do think that to a point, he's kind of like a role-playing 5. You can't build a team around Draymond Green. You put Draymond Green on the roster and it lifts everybody else up and makes them better than the whole. Bam Adebayo, you don't want to build a team around him. You want to build a team around Jimmy Butler and Tyler Hero and Jay Crowder and Goran Dragic, and then put Bam Adebayo on it, because what he does makes everybody else better and lifts the whole team up this way. Anthony Davis, we saw him in New Orleans, and I think he made 2 playoffs in 7 years in New Orleans, right? Might have been the greatest player, like one of the best players in the NBA, but I don't think that you can win when your best player like that is a 5. Goes to the Lakers, plays with LeBron James, and all of a sudden, like, that's the best team in the NBA. So I kind of think that Evan Mobley's in that same vein where he needs to be with a great player. So Cade Cunningham has the potential to be that kind of great player. And even before that 40-point game, like, I don't think that you can pass that up. If you can get a guy that's basically going to be like the same, I think there's a very real chance that Cade Cunningham can end up being as good as like Luka Doncic and as good as LaMelo Ball looks like he's going to end up being, and like can kind of play that same 6'7" point guard role, except, he's more athletic, he's tougher, he's stronger, he's a better defender, he's got the 7'2" wingspan, all of that stuff. So I don't think that you can pass that up even before seeing him go out and make all the plays that he made down the stretch here. So Yeah, I'm kind of. I don't think it hasn't really changed. I don't think anything I saw changed my mind. But watching Cade struggle a little bit with defenses and driving into brick walls and kind of forcing it being turnover prone, I was like, well, at some point this might be a conversation. Nope. We saw it. Like sometimes that's all you need is just see it once, and And
no, I definitely agree. I always kept him there. I kept him at the number one mainly because I like what I saw from him in general. Like even when he was doing those things, he was, you had that conversation about LeBron being like MVP and all these guys being MVP, and then you see the things that they actually do that affects the team as a whole. Mm-hmm. But if you were to take him out of that team, and you just look at the rest of the team, you couldn't picture the team doing as well as they are or doing anything at all if he wasn't there. I kind of put him in that scenario, not to just compare him to LeBron, but just to say that when I look at that Oklahoma State team, it's just, and I take him out, I don't really see that team. Like he does a lot. He rebounds. He sets people up. Granted, he didn't set many people up that game. He was too busy getting buckets. But he set people up.
That happens.
Yeah, exactly. That's just the way I'd rather him get the damn buckets. But he sets people up. He's guarding infinitely better. Obviously from the beginning of the season to this point now, which shows growth as far as defensively. Like and one of my favorite things about him is he's just so poised, man. He doesn't get out of character. Like you maybe see him get fired up once in a while, but for the most part, man, he is just mellow and chill, and he just goes out there stone cold face, plays, figures out. It's just like it's so Derrick Rose to me when I see him in a sense. Not the athleticism, going sick athlete up and down,
right?
But the mentality, yeah. Like it's just I'm gonna go out there and do my job type vibe, and he's great, man. I liked him as a number one pick before. I always wondered, like, all right, I saw some of the vision and everything like that when he was playing in high school, and I wondered how it would work out. And with the team he was on, it hasn't been great, but you see spots in certain games where he finds people and does the things, and so he has the vision. But I was honestly worried about the scoring. Like when I started hearing about like the point guard that can be a franchise guy, and I think of all the franchise point guards that have come out of college, like they all can score the damn basketball, or they were just an amazing just point guard in general. Like as far as setting offense, finding people, like the scoring, what he did this last game was his display of scoring was damn sure. It was great, man. Step backs, NBA three, like everything. Like he was everywhere. Yeah,
he had it all.
He did everything.
He had it all. And I just want to end the podcast on this because it's something that has to do with Oklahoma State. At this point, we are 14 days away from Selection Sunday. If the NCAA, as of right now, Oklahoma State still has a postseason ban coming to them, but they are currently appealing the ruling, which means that if the NCAA does not make a decision on it before the bracket gets released, then Oklahoma State's going to be able to play in the NCAA tournament.
Yes.
And we're 14 days away. And after everything that all of these kids have been through this season, if the NCAA in these next 2 weeks comes out and says, we're overturning your appeal, you're not going to the NCAA tournament when Oklahoma State is like a 6th seed, I will lose my motherfucking mind, Desean.
Yeah, bro. Because he's brought them to the tournament.
Yeah. And it's not just that.
Not just him. The rest of the guys, obviously, they did their part as well.
Yeah. But, like, so I kind of, in the sense that, like, okay, you did something wrong, you committed a violation, you got to pay the punishment, the rules were broken, blah, blah, blah. But like, whatever. Like, I understand that eventually, like, you kind of, like, if your rules were broken, you have to enforce them, whatever. But one, I think the ruling itself is a load of shit. We really don't. I don't want to go into the rant about Oklahoma State. I can go into a rant about Oklahoma State, but let's just say that, like, there's the people that were actually victimized in this were the players, were the player that Lamont Evans was trying to take advantage of. There was no competitive advantage gained. There was no cheating that was actually involved. It was just a dude that was greedy, taking bribes, trying to line his pockets while victimizing a player by telling him that he was going to set him up with a guy that actually happened to be someone that had swindled $2.5 million out out of clients that he had before. So like the people that were the victims in this, that were Lamont Evans victims, was the player, was Jeffrey Carroll. That's who was the victim of Lamont Evans. And they are punishing him because he was accepting bribes and committing federal offenses and all of this other stuff. Like it's so dumb to take they weren't cheating. There was no cheating involved. There was no competitive advantage gained. It did not make them better. Like this does not affect winning in any way. This was just some greedy asshole trying to get a little bit of extra money.
And he's been dealt with.
That said, if they make the decision where they're going to like overrule this and not let Oklahoma State go to the NCAA tournament,
that would hurt.
After everything, after they played all of this time in a pandemic, after they dealt with all the isolation, after they dealt with all of this stuff, it's just
kind of hurt.
It would be Desean. We would go down kicking and screaming. We might have to boycott.
Were they even picked to even? They weren't even picked to go to the tournament this year at all.
Who, Oklahoma State?
Yeah, I don't think so. Were they?
No,
were they picked
no
to
one thought
even?
They were a tournament team. We were like,
they're not. Yeah,
there, but we'll see. And you know what?
Here we are. Like they're
so good for Cade. Good for Mike Boyden. I really like Mike. I've said that before.
Facts.
You know what I like about him? If the more you get into media, the more you'll experience this, Desean. There's a lot of coaches where if you get them on the phone and say, look, this is off the record, don't say anything about this. Or, this is when you ask them a question, you'll be like, well, is this staying here? This is off the record, right? Mike has never said the words off the record to me. I've been like, I'm going to ask you a question. Is it okay if it's on the record? He's like, I'm not going to say anything to you that I would not say publicly. I would not want to put my name to. And I've always really respected that about him and the way that he kind of approaches this. So, I think that's all we got. Let Oklahoma State in the NCAA tournament. Desean, it's good to have you back. Next week, I'm going to tease it right now. Next week, Thursday night, the Beers and Ball live stream. We are going to invite a special guest on. It is going to be the Why Your Team Sucks Beers and Ball live stream, the most anticipated show of the entire year. Desean, I'm fired up. It's your first one, baby. You excited?
I'm very excited, and I'm going to leave this shirt at home because once he sees it, he's going to go in. So I don't want my feelings hurt.
Yeah, there you go. All right, man. It was good catching up. Congratulations. Go out and win this tournament for me. All right.
That's the plan, man. That's the plan. Glad to be back.